Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This week, I have with me Natalia. She is the Chief Data Officer at ZestMoney, which has prior experience in innovation, data science, analytical roles at various organizations such as Wonga and L'Oreal. She's also a fellow DataIQ Top 100 Most Influential People in Data, so it's great to have an esteemed peer of mine on the show as well. We're talking about building a data science team and how to go about doing that. Natalia, welcome to the show and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Jason. My pleasure to be here today.
Cool. So I'm sure I gave the very potted history of who you are in my one-liner there. Should we get going with a little bit about you and maybe the role that you have right now?
Sure, yeah. So I'm currently Chief Data Officer at ZestMoney, and ZestMoney is the fastest growing Indian fintech company. I've been there for the last almost 6.5 years now, and been building the data science team and capability from basically the scratch till where we are today. We are having a team of almost 35 people. I previously worked at Wonga as well, starting first as a data scientist and then moving towards leading the data science and the analytics team in the UK and in our international markets. So as well had some experience recruiting and building and leading the data science team. Overall, for the last 15 years, I'm in data industry, mostly related to the fintech sector. Building the commercial products using data and AI machine learning capabilities. So yeah, happy to share my experience and hope it will be useful for the audience.
Yeah, and sounds like a great sort of set of experience and a probably less common route to Chief Data Officer actually in terms of being a data scientist and then sort of working through that, leading data science teams and being a Chief Data Officer. That's actually, interestingly, a less common route to being a Chief Data Officer, more and more happening these days. But so yeah, really interesting background. You've obviously done that in a lot of different places. Have a bit of a focus on fintech for a long while during that. So yeah, looking forward to talking to you a bit more about all of that. So I guess just to sort of frame things up and get us going, have you sort of learned and do you follow like a common approach to building a data science team? It sounds like you've done that a few times from scratch, certainly in the role you're in right now at ZestMoney. Yeah, have you got like a sort of set of principles or approach that you tend to sort of focus on when building out a data science team? So if people are thinking about, well, how the hell do I do this? Have you got something to share from to get us going there?
Yeah, I think honestly there is no probably something like common approach. I think it's the situation where you need to consider each case separately, depending on the size of the team, depending on the purpose of why you need this team. But I think one of the key principles that I learned over my journey is that first of all, you need to align the mission and the vision you have for the data science team with the vision for the business, for the company in general. Yeah. And I think this is what defines to a large extent the success of the data science team as well. Then of course there are details, how you structure it from an organizational perspective, how you motivate the data scientists, how you organize the whole process of model building, doing POC, implementing, and the whole machine learning ops part. But I think the key is really for the business to understand why they need a data science team. And it can be, again, outsourced or it can be internally built. But the vision, what exactly we aim for this team to deliver and how it coincides with the business goals, I think this is the most critical part.
And do you find organizations that you've engaged with tend to know that from the start, or is that something that you have to embed, define and embed yourself early on?
Well, I think I was lucky enough to have companies who actually from the very beginning knew why they needed a data science team and actually believed that this is the way to have a competitive advantage for them to build AI and machine learning capabilities internally. So that's why my function was mostly to do it successfully, to execute this part successfully, rather than, to persuade the founders or the board why we need this. I would presume in the big corporations that's probably the other way around. You actually need to justify and make the right business use case why the data science is needed, and not just to run the team for the sake or to have the team of data scientists. So that's, I think, what was from one side made it easier for me.
Yeah.
From another side, it's also set up a different level of expectations of what type of team we have and we need to have. So that's but quite an interesting experience overall. So that was, I think, helping from one side. And at that time, if I talk about ZestMoney experiences, almost 7 years ago now, when I started building the team, I think the data science hype was at the highest. And that's also created its own challenges, how you hire people, how you find the right set of skill sets and fit into your team.
Is there a so I suppose the first thing to say is yes, you're very fortunate to go into organizations where sort of almost in the DNA it's understood that data science, particularly, and obviously technology focused businesses that have a product that can be powered by data science and advanced analytics and machine learning. So I think that is fortunate, and you're right in other organizations, not just sort of large established corporates, but other organizations, there's often a necessary step of getting that level of understanding in the first place before you can then even start building. I suppose the other point then you started talking about there in terms of the skills needed and things. Is there a typical type of team to build, early on versus late? Are there certain skills you need to bring in for sure straight away, and some that can wait till later? That's what I kind of guess I meant earlier on by the approach to building the data science team. Are there kind of like, is it obvious what you need first versus later, or actually does that depend on the situation?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think that's is also a kind of situation where there is no right answer. Everything depends on where the company stands. The level of the technologies already has the data of, for example, operational support. It has, and if you talk about the data pipelines, to what extent they're already built, or need specifically data engineers to build this part.
Yeah.
But I think what is important, and again, something that worked for me in both cases with Wonga and ZestMoney, is not only to hire people who are technically skillful, who can write Python script to run the model, but actually people who can speak the same language as business people, and at the same time speak the same language as technology and developers. So they can, from one side, understand the problem, the business problem they're trying to solve, find the right solution, and then be able to implement it. Because for us, what was important, we were not talking about data scientists as being only POC models, which you kind of run the project, put it on shelf, and that's it. And you can measure the success of it. But what was important for us, that everything that is built by the data scientists is put in production, and really the whole product was relying on the models, on the algorithms, on the tools that were developed by data scientists. Hence, this necessity for data scientists to speak the same language with business people, to understand the problem. And I think that's also what creates trust between data science and the rest of the business. We do not need, business people to come and say, or we need logistic regression to build. They come with a specific business problem to solve. We need to reduce the drop-off rate, or we need to reduce the losses, or increase the revenue. And then for the data scientists, it is already their task and mission to translate it into how different models, algorithm, data can be used to solve this problem. And I think this is what is important from one side, to have the trust from business that these people can deliver and can provide the solution for the problem they're searching for, the solution. And on the other side, the data scientists who see that they have this level of trust and they empowered to deliver the solution, rather than someone who is telling them from A to B, from to Z, what to build.
Yeah, that's as you say, that alignment with what's required, and almost working as a collaborative team. I wouldn't mind coming back to sort of how you make that happen a bit more shortly, actually. So let me hold that thought. But I think it's interesting when I the sort of the two questions I've pointed at you on, sort of what that team needs to look like and the approach. You've mentioned. You've essentially mentioned that you've got to have that kind of clarity of what you're solving for the organization generally, and people that are essentially human and able to discuss and care about the business problem and the use case that you're looking after, less so than the technical skills that are needed to make that happen. I've certainly seen that that's quite a common way to ensure success, and I think people can get a bit confused in some ways about where the kind of skills, the kind of behaviors, the kind of sort of rounded individuals you need. Have you found that's been a sort of game changer?
Definitely, yeah. I think one of the mistakes we've done at the very beginning, we started looking for strong technical people. And then this is where we realize that basically that people are just, sitting in front of computer writing the code, and they do not understand how the product actually works. And this is where we've seen quite the gap happening between the business teams, between the business goals and the data science team. And it was very much isolated at the beginning. And this is where we realize that this is not the way for us to go, and this is what not will bring us success. So we started really creating the squads where the data scientists can work together with different teams, with business teams, with technology teams, product teams, where they understand what exactly the problem, what the context of this problem. And I think this is where we found a successful solution for us, and it worked actually in the longer term as well, because I think data scientists as well, they're not people who only like to work with the code, with the computer. They're actually very strong team players. And for them, it is important to have this environment where they can discuss the ideas, where they can share the first results, to collaborate, to find, people who can provide actually the feedback to their work. So that's as well very important.
And how are you set up? So either in Zest or previously, how have you find is the best way to set up? Is it a kind of central data science function that any data science requirements sort of go into, and then, as you say, work collaboratively? Or is it more embedding your data scientists and data science function within the product groups or the business units or the teams that are sort of out solving problems and delivering services and products to customers?
Yeah, I think it is very complex questions, and again, the solutions that worked for us might not necessarily work for everyone. But we found that the centralized functions works well, and first of all, because at the beginning, I think the focus specifically at ZestMoney was to use AI and data science specifically for solving the underwriting problem, to basically onboard the new customers and provide the optimized credit line for our existing customers. So that was a lot about credit risk assessment, about fraud evaluation, income and affordability assessment, where machine learning models could contribute well. So I would say that was two functions that were working closely together. But then we realized that going beyond this, where the product needed the data science contribution, where the collection team needed data science contribution, contribution. It works well to organize the functions centrally and maybe have small teams according to the project they involved to work on specific deliverables. I think the advantage of the centralized team again is data science working together and having support from each other and discussing ideas in a group. So that worked pretty well. But at the same time, there are definitely moments where we see that dedicated person to the function is needed. That's where more close collaboration in the working group or in the squad is happening.
Yeah, no, really interesting. So definitely found, you found a way of making that central function work and not be a bottleneck, I think, is the danger of that. So I mean, are you sort of aligned then to specific use cases, and you've got a prioritization mechanism for how you define where your effort's going to be focused?
Yeah, definitely. So basically, once we created the centralized function, we included it in our common process of how we define the priorities for each team. Of course, sometimes it's not so straightforward to consider multiple functions and their projects that needs data science involvement. But I would say so far it works well, and actually makes us as well think of how we can better evaluate the contribution of data science in terms of investment, in terms of return that this project delivers. And I think the understanding of the business as well definitely improved once we started this project. Because again, from data science perspective, it's not always easy to measure what the contribution is. Like if you improve the accuracy of the model by 5%, how much this translates into the business value? Either it is additional revenue or reduced costs or a reduced turnaround time. So there are, let's say, apples and oranges, but we need to bring them to the right measurement.
Yes, because for good financial management of the organization, but also so that it's investing in the right things, but also so that you know that the level of contribution that you're making. I think that's it feels good to know that the work you're doing contributes to something, but just also to know that there's a return on the investment that you're making. That's a sound approach. And so are you so you mentioned about kind of the team, data science teams working with the different product groups and that kind of thing. Do you have this concept of treating data as a product in its own right, or is it simply an extension and something that embeds into the end product that the customer engages with?
I would say we are not really treating data as a product. We rather the opposite. We build a product that is fueled by data and AI and machine learning. So it is everything I would say data centered. We try to make all the decisions based on the data rather than on the gut feeling or some assumptions we have. If we have an assumption, there is always a way for us to test and to see whether this assumption holds or not. So I think from this perspective, we consider still our key product as the product, actual product that we are building, and the data being enabler for this. And I would say the measurements and how we treat the product is more about how the users use this product. And this is what the data, again, helps us to see and helps us to define what is next, what are the improvements we can make to our product.
Yeah. So I can see where you're coming that the other way. You've got products that are driven by data, rather than thinking about a data product and how does it plug into a broader product that you have that customers interact with.
Yeah, and I think it also comes from the fact that we collect really a lot of data, and we do not want to have the situation where we're like, what we are doing with this data. Let's think what kind of questions we want to answer with this data, because that will bring us nowhere. It will be more as a research group or the lab that is doing some exploration, which definitely is not bad on its own, but considering that we are a commercial company, we have our own financial goals as well. For us, what is important is also think in terms of the product and what we want to achieve and how data enables us to reach these goals.
Right, great. I'd like to go back to the setup of the team and the sort of breadth of skills in a data science team, because I get sort of the environment. You sort of painted a good picture about the environment needed and the behaviors and the values of the people within the data science function. But in terms of the kind of more technical skills, should I say, not necessarily coding, but just sort of the broader technical skills needed, do you build these kind of cross-functional data science teams that are made up of researchers and behavioral scientists and ML engineers, and what does the kind of like core skill set look like to give you a well-rounded data science function?
Yeah, definitely. We are not, as I said, only looking at the coding abilities of the candidate. And I think with every new person coming to the team, we actually look at what additional new skill set that they bring in with them. And it's not necessarily might be, again, some technology or the new platform they know, but actually just even the experience from different field or from different industry. So obviously the credit risk, we started looking at the candidates coming from the credit risk environment or the payment sector, where of course they at least speak the same language and it is easier to start building the team. But now we are looking at people coming from completely different industries, from retailers, from e-commerce, from delivery, well, whatever other industry you may think of. And that's also broadens the way we look at the things. Like, for example, the delivery industry is someone who came recently to us, someone who has very good experience with geolocation data and brought a lot of knowledge and experience how we can use this data, not only from technical perspective, but even from the product perspective, how we can build different functionalities and new features for the customer using this data. So that's also came as a really enrichment for the team. So that's, I wouldn't say that we are looking at specific fields like behavioral scientists or researchers, but we are very open to look broadly at whatever previous experience people had.
That's good. I suppose that gives you nice breadth and diversity of thinking and different angles to a problem. And if you stick on that kind of blinkered, well, we're in finance, we need to sort of, as you say, credit risk and pricing and fraud and risk, or even those things, but from different industries are quite nice. But yeah, as you say, retail, distribution, logistics, they're all optimization problems, and you all have optimization challenges, and maybe some thinking about those in a slightly different way can really help.
Yeah. And everyone is talking now fairly about the bias in AI, and I think that this is as well from where it comes, because if you have a homogeneous team with everyone thinking in the same way, it doesn't really help us to look at the problem from various angles, and this is where the bias is coming from. Yeah. And if you have the team, even from gender perspective, balanced female and male, how people are using the credit products, for example, from this perspective, it also broadens us the view and helps us understand whether the sample is actually biased or not, or whether the product framework works in a way that it discourages some of the customers or the opposite favors the others. So that's, I think, important as well, to make sure that we are building the fair and transparent product for our customers.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought bias up, because I wanted to ask about this and ethics as well, because as you say, it's more important than ever, particularly with sort of the trust of people interacting with the end result that these algorithms produce. Do you have sort of guardrails to manage this? Obviously, we just talked there about the having a diverse team helps with at least the right thinking that goes into the production of models and test data and the way you think about things. But do you have more formalized guardrails for managing that? And I suppose, and maybe it comes out in MLOps, in machine learning ops, or how you manage it, not just from a development perspective, but from an ongoing maintenance and improvement perspective as well.
Yeah, we do have the guidance, and well, definitely from the MLOps perspective, we started it a while ago, because what we noticed as well, that even we are operating on the Indian market, that there are a lot of diversity and population, and the target audience is shifting a lot. So we do need this focus to make sure that our models are robust and not, for example, discriminated against a specific group. We started looking at recently more from ethical point of view and transparency point of view as well, how transparent the models are, and especially if the regulator comes, how we are able to explain why model took this decision or not the other one. So I think more and more, it doesn't mean that models become less sophisticated, but we are looking for ways for us to be able to explain what exactly the model is doing and how it is doing. Right. And I think specifically in the fintech sector, it's very critical because, well, a majority of the models are the probabilistic models. So there is always a probability that you misclassify someone as a bad while he's a good customer, or even more importantly, you misclassify someone as a fraud and he's a non-honest customer. So how you deal with it on the UX, for example, you cannot just tell people, oh, we think you're fraudulent, or block your application. So there is a lot of this learning where we collaborate with the product team closely and see how we can improve our data, not to create any bias or any, mistrust wherever this kind of things happening, because there is always a probability of error, and we need to handle this and to learn from this as well as fast as possible and without much impact on the good customers.
Yeah, and I guess there's you raised it a little bit there about the cultural difference between who the customers you're interacting with. Have you found that there's different cultural challenges in different countries, different markets? Again, not just in Zest, which I know is sort of global and sort of expanding into different countries, but your career is across lots of different countries across the world. Have you seen different cultural challenges in different countries, different markets, different teams that change either the nature of the way you set up the team in the first place, or the way you handle things like bias and building of models at the other end?
I would say so. That there are definitely a lot of cultural differences and specifics. I think when I joined ZestMoney, it was my first experience with a company operating in Asia and the Indian market. So I learned a lot about, well, not only our end consumers and our customers, how they are doing, how they're using financial products, but even when hiring people and working in the team, that was, I would say, quite a challenge at that time. It was, again, like 6-7 years ago when there was a whole hype around data science and the AI. And I think what was happening, everyone with at least some Excel skills, or naming himself as a data scientist and putting a lot of buzzwords on the CV. So it was a really a strong task to differentiate people who really have experience and good in their what they claim they are doing versus the people who just started their career maybe in the data science or just want to jump on this train. And even the way we were recruiting was completely different because there were a shortage of the data scientists. usually, on my experience, I like to put some test or some technical task to complete for data science that has technical abilities. But what was happening, people just drop off when they seen the test. And again, that's explained by the shortage of the data science resources, so they can just go somewhere where they do not need to perform any tests. So that as well, something that was I would say more peculiar for the Indian markets rather than, for example, for the UK market, where I've been previously hiring. In the UK, I've seen many more data scientists coming with a strong background in PhD in computer scientists or master degrees in computer sciences. They were very much research oriented. That was another challenge to solve, rather than with the commercial acumen. But at least from technical abilities, it was, I would say, stronger profiles, but also easier to manage at the time of recruitment.
Right. Yeah, and interesting that you've got that broad set of experiences of how, you know, different cultures work, different and how that's changed over time and in different countries. So I think it sort of on a similar track as we kind of start to think about wrapping up. Do you think this has all changed over your career in data science? Has either the craft of data science changed and how it's applied, or has the way we approach it, you know, changed? And looking forward, where do you see the biggest changes happening?
I would say definitely there was a big evolution happening in the past 5 to 10 years. I think, and especially I think in the last years with the pandemic, the change was even more accelerated. Largely, I think people moved away from this hype of AI, big data. I think a lot of people in the industry realize that it's now more just the buzzwords or, you know, the marketing fans to put these words on the job description or in the description of the company where you're using AI technologies. But actually, it is the way, the internal IP of the company, the way for them to build a competitive advantage, to even set up product based on this versus their competitors, for example. And if it doesn't move ahead of the just buzzwords, the product, the businesses won't survive. So I think that's majority of companies I see actually realize that it can bring the real value, but the success obviously depends on a lot of factors. I think what became easier is that there are definitely some successes in the various industries, and there are already successful case studies and business cases where people can just, you know, learn from what works, what doesn't work. Again, I think there is such a variety of cases that there is no one fits all solution, but at least there are key principle what to do and what not to do if you want to leverage from data, machine learning, AI technologies to build a successful data science team. I would see, if you think going forward where the biggest change or transformation is happening, I think more and more it will move towards how we productionize and take the business value from these projects. Probably where we stand now, a lot of companies are successfully done some POCs, but the next step is actually to implement it and do as a regular business process, how the models get into production, how they are controlled, how they are validated. I think a lot of regulatory requirements are coming as well. This way, there was a new EU guidelines about the AI. So a lot of things, I think, getting more structured and in this sense, easier. There are a lot of data or technology providers that as well try to address some of the edge cases or the key problems that exist on the market. So, for example, in our cases, we do not need to build everything in-house, what we've been doing before, because there was just no solution on the market. But now more and more companies are specialized in specific areas where we can leverage any collaboration with them. But
I guess on that point, sorry to cut in there. I guess on that point, it's there's that balance, isn't there, between what makes sense for you to build and own the IP for, because it's a value add, it's a differentiator for your business, and what actually is something that's available and you're smart to how you best sort of integrate it and plug it in, and it acts an accelerator for you. There's a balance there, isn't there? Because some things you want to own and some things it's not, not necessary that you should.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is no more, this extreme scenarios buy or build. I think majority of the forums are hybrid in one way or the other, and this is where you find the right balance. Every company finds what best works for them.
Mm. Brilliant. Well, it's been great talking to you, and I love your kind of your focus here on building data science teams, sort of measured and out really sort of business and product outcome focused approach to it, which is great, and the sort of the balance of innovation and but also executing well and delivering real value is brilliant to hear. So thanks for sharing your thoughts and your stories and your experience with us, Natalia. It's been great to have you on the show.
It was my pleasure. Thanks a lot, Jason.
No problem. And thanks everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed hearing all about how to build a data science team and the mindset needed to do that, and the best principles and approaches for it. And we'll catch you again soon. So thanks very much.